in August, and indeed it has been hinted on since the start of the year, that Indonesia will officially reduce its renewable target from 23% by 2025 to between 17 and 19% next year. On the other hand, Indonesia has set a net zero emission target by 2060, among other targets to be aligned with the 2016 Paris Accord. Can Indonesia still hope to achieve its target under the current condition? To answer that question, we have today with us Deon Arinaldo, Energy Transformation Manager for the Institute of Essential Services Reform, or IESR, to help us understand what's going on and what can be done to push Indonesia's renewable energy drive forward. Mr. Arinaldo, please introduce yourself.
Yes, thank you, Mas Handra, for inviting IESR. So I'll start with briefly introducing IESR. So we are a non-profit organization based in Jakarta. We call ourselves think tank because we do research specifically on energy transition. And based on that research, we do our policy advocacy. So we work closely with government, and since 2017, we have started our advocacy on power sector transition, and now looking at the entire energy system strategy.
Thank you so much, Pak Deon, for coming to today's podcast with us. The big question right now is, yes, the reduced target. Why do you think this was decided?
Yeah, maybe I'll start with correcting that a bit first, because at the moment, the target has not been set yet, although the intention is there. With the revision of the government regulation for national energy policy, or we call it here in Indonesia RPPKN, to be short. In that revision, that target that you mentioned has been included, and it has been mentioned specifically in the articles. However, the regulation is still under discussion with the House of Representatives, DPR, and it has not been agreed yet, because there are some articles. There are some articles that still has been back and forth discussion on that article, but the government and the House of Representatives, I would say that they have the intention to finalize it by before this October 2024. So, reduction of the target. So, why is it necessary? Well, I don't really agree with that questions, first of all, because I see that when we set a policy, I would really like to see a policy that show a long-term direction where we want to go as a country.
A vision, yeah.
A vision, right? That's what's supposed to be included in the RPPKN, because that's a policy, an energy policy. So unfortunately, the revision, which is focused more on the reducing the target next year, it doesn't really serve any benefit for everyone, including the government, actually. In my opinion. Why? Because at the moment, Indonesia is at the crossroad. We are advancing. We want to do our energy transition, and with that, we really have to set a really clear direction where we want to go. And reducing this target did some
damage,
you could say, to that confidence. Not just within the government, but also the other businesses, the other partners that Indonesia has worked with, especially in renewable energy. And this is really important, because policy was not meant to just showing that, hey, Indonesia is reaching its target, but it's supposed to be showing that the country is preparing to go to a certain direction. And we are preparing to facilitate any kind of support, any kind of interest that could support that target. And that's very unfortunate, I would say, with this new RPPKN, if it comes into legal and force. So it will have like a very counterproductive results for the energy transition progress, I would say. And
it could also be said that it was done because the challenges are just too hard. I mean, this is also part of my question. I mean,
we do have to admit that the overall progress and investment overall for the last 5 years has been very lacking compared to the target that has been set. For example, the renewable energy mix they were supposed to be reaching 17% renewable energy mix in primary energy mix. I mean, last year, the government only has achieved like 13%, so like 4% difference. And this year was supposed to be like 20% something, and then 23% the next year. But again, this is a policy that has been confirmed and agreed upon, like back in 2014 when the national energy policy came up. So what I expect that should be done is actually like a more comprehensive audit or evaluation. Why? As you mentioned, where are the challenges? Where are the bottlenecks of this achieving this renewable energy target? So if we go deeper into this target, so the government has, I would say, two big strategy on improving this renewable energy mix. The first one, of course, in power sector with renewable energy power plants, and the second one is biofuel. And with both of these, I think biofuel is still progressing quite well. We could see that the government is still increasing their mandatory biofuel
B50, B40.
B50, B40.
Yeah.
Although there are still some miss in terms of in the original design, it was not just for biodiesel, but it's also included bioethanol, which is missing from the equation at the moment. So that's also something. But at least the biodiesel is progressing quite well. But on the power sector, this is the one that has been very lacking in terms of investment and realization. The hydro and geothermal that has been planned since like few years back, it has been there in the pipeline, but the realization has, I would say, has been delayed for quite some time. So this is also problematic, and it has caused the power system renewable energy mix it's not as high as what is expected before.
But why has hydropower and geothermal been so lacking in progress?
Well, it's hydro and geothermal. That's the thing with the power plant. It was a risk that has to be recognized when we plan it out.
It's hydro, a risky investment.
it's part of the risk that developing of geothermal power plant, because the geothermal, well, the risk is really in the exploration, and then you have to really with the current regulatory system, then PLN has to do the bidding auction system, and then really the private has to come in here, and the government the government has put some effort, that's for sure, with the government drilling and so on, but the risk is still there. And even with the one that has passed the exploration phase and now it's in the development phase, it faced challenge in terms of maybe the resistance from the local community, because most of the geothermal, I would say, and also the large hydro coincides with the indigenous community or in protected areas, forest areas. So that's also some challenge there. And it has been there for like decades, I would say.
This is an ongoing problem.
It's an ongoing problem.
It's just they haven't been able to solve it.
But even if we solve everything, it's just that the process of developing the project itself takes a long time. It's like 8 to 10 years.
Okay, so that's definitely challenge. Then those are the challenges. But then what needs to be done by the government? Just more pushing, or?
Yeah, I think there has to be a clear. I mean, this new administration coming in is really key, because the make or break of energy transition, we think, from our point of view, will really be determined by what the next 5 years administration will do for Indonesia. Why? So I'll go back to the energy system study that we have done back in 2021. So we have looked at specifically only the pathway for the whole energy system. What I meant with the whole energy system is the supply side. You have power and also fuel, and on the demand side is transport, industry, and building, of course. The whole energy system, how do we transform that? We have done the modeling, and we see that the key for, especially within this decade until 2030, is really ramping up renewable energy in electricity, and you do electrification at the same time. So that's the key finding that we find from our modeling back in 2021.
You push electrification, but with renewable.
with renewables. So electrification means that the demand that's before using fuels
Mm.
or
Mm.
especially for low heating needs
Mm.
or maybe transport as well,
Mm.
it could be electrified
Mhm.
and it could still produce some economic benefit in terms
Mm.
of when you switch that, because it's more efficient, and with renewables that's coming with that's also competitive with the power plant that's now dominating electricity grid. So in the overall the whole energy system view, we still have some saving and even reduce the cost of the whole energy system.
Yeah, yeah. So you've done the modeling, and it's
Yeah, yeah.
actually it could work. Yeah.
Yeah. So based on that modeling, that's the key. So we have to kickstart our electrification in all our demand sector. That means transport. We also have to look into building. We also have to look into industry.
Mm.
Now I think government has been trying to move into that
I mean,
direction.
yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, I
yeah,
think there's some success stories, especially in
yeah.
success stories, especially in EVs. Yeah, and
Yes.
electrifying
Yeah.
transportation. So that's actually.
Yeah. So the direction is there, right? So
Mm.
and now we have to find a way. We really need to scale it up,
Mm.
but the direction is still is good.
Mm.
What's missing maybe from the electrification perspective is on the industry,
Mm.
which is now I think the government, the Ministry of Industry is looking at it.
It's a huge
Yeah.
part of the
Yeah, it's a
the
huge
demand.
part.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Again, we have to scale it up. So everyone that could be electrified then have to be electrified or incentivized to do that electrification by themselves.
By renewables.
Yeah. Electrification first, and then supply of electricity comes with renewables.
I see. Sorry.
Yeah. So building, yeah, I guess household and also commercial building, it's quite easy. It's quite obvious. It's just a matter of whether the building owners, the commercial owners understand the benefit, then they could adopt it. So that's one key. The second one is in the power sector, of course, and this is really deals with PLN, because PLN is the single off taker of electricity at the moment, and they are the one that owns the right to sell electricity.
Yes, there's the regulatory aspect of PLN being a single off-taker. There's also, in terms of industry and I suppose financiers, especially interest rates being this high in this current economic climate, it being like not easy. It's not easy for investors to put in that much money on new technologies that they're not familiar with. They don't know whether to replace it or not. That's certainly another one of those challenges. Yeah.
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 And now we see all over the place, the government wants to develop everything.
Yeah.
We have we have nuclear, right?
Yeah,
Right
that's
on the
coming.
first. Yeah, it's coming on the can, and we also see the narrative on CCS for fossil
Carbon
power
capture.
plant. Yeah,
Yes. Yeah.
the switch to clean fuel, hydrogen and ammonia.
Yep.
So biomass co-firing, a lot of things going on. So it's really not clear, and it divides the stakeholders
I
to
see.
kind of where do we want to put our contribution to renewable energy, or to increase the renewable energy mix in Indonesia. So and what's missing is also on the solar and wind,
Yeah. Yeah.
which has been proven all over the globally that is the cheapest source of electricity. But at the moment, it's not there because the project pipeline is not there. The project pipeline is not included in the planning yet. So this is I mean this is why I mentioned before, the next administration has to be
Administration. Yeah.
has to be clear on setting up where we want to put our support into, because we can't really support everything.
The next government. Yeah.
Yeah, the next government, because this technology is, the solution is there. Solar, wind, CCS, nuclear is not a new technology. It has been used globally. Of course, there has been some discussion, also analysis perhaps, on what does it mean for Indonesia in terms of cost and also maybe energy security and also supply of technology and so on. But at least we really have to make a clear decision where we want to put our focus, because if you put everything, then we'll just compete with each other, and then you will gain like slow progress. That's not what we want.
It's good insight, Pak Deon. Actually, in related to this, in particular, actually, is IKN. IKN is said to be a very futuristic city with EVs only as a transportation, with electrification coming mainly only from renewables. What do you think about that? Very recently, as we're recording this podcast, Pak Prabowo, the president-elect, has pledged to continue it in the recent cabinet meeting in Nusantara that was a few days ago. What do you think of these latest developments? How feasible is IKN able to, let's say, embrace or host these ideas?
So IKN is definitely an expensive project, yeah. And if we really want to make it succeed, then it's not just the success that we want to seek. We want to make it possible for IKN to also be unlocking at least other kind of development that we want to see. So you mentioned before, IKN wants to supply its energy needs with 100% renewables. Then we don't want to stop thinking just only whether IKN could be supplied with 100% renewables, but we want to think that what kind of renewables and what we want to expect from these renewables in the coming years. So what I mean with that is that whether we want to Indonesia want to really start building out its manufacturing industry for renewables, for instance, those kind of things. So IKN could be used as a leverage point, or as a kind of like the demand starting point, or things like that.
A jumping point.
A jumping point, yeah. For instance, for EV, for renewables, for whatever we see as fitting. For as for the original questions, whether it could be supplied with 100%, definitely could be supplied with 100% renewables, because we have 3,700 gigawatt of potential, as what the Ministry of Energy data shows recently, and we only have utilized
3,700 gigawatts.
3,700 gigawatt total renewables, total renewables potential. That's very huge, and at the moment we only utilize, if I'm not mistaken, like 13 gigawatt, because 80 gigawatt is like the total power plant capacity.
The capacity.
Yeah, but for renewables, I think it's only 13 or 14 gigawatt.
14 gigawatts.
Yeah, mostly hydro and geothermal again. Hydro and geothermal. But if you look at the potential, 3,700 gigawatt, 3,000 gigawatt is actually solar.
Oh wow, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
You said.
It's actually solar, and like 60 gigawatts is hydro, and 90 gigawatt is wind, and 60 gigawatt biomass, if I'm not mistaken, and geothermal is like 27 gigawatt. So that's in total 3,700. Okay. So it's very abundant, and unfortunately the largest potential renewables is the one that has not been...
It's underutilized, yeah?
Yeah, very underutilized, because at the moment, I think out of 3,000 gigawatt of solar potential, we only utilize like... The largest one is Cirata, that's just
the
coming
floating
online
solar
like
power
few
plant. That's
months.
also actually a really good model, to be honest.
Yeah, that's a pretty good model.
It's good.
Yeah.
It's big, but I hope to see more of that at least.
Yeah, definitely we need to see more of that. So it could be a combination of solar and also maybe hydro, for example,
Right.
Or some storage with using hydro technology. It's also an option.
There's a lot of potential, essentially.
There's a lot of potential that's still
That could be
underutilized
taken
and could be
advantage.
utilized for the IKN or wherever you want in
Well,
Indonesia.
Yeah. Then lastly, to end our podcast, what would you say to businesses and foreign investors about Indonesia's renewable energy potential? That it's underutilized, yes, but...
Yeah, well, I would say that even with this uncertainty in terms of the policy, it's most of the energy policy is being updated. We mentioned before RPPKN, but we also have renewable energy and new energy bill that is also upcoming. We also have some update on regulation on the tariff and on the local content regulation that has just been resolved. So there are some, the KDN is one of the many challenges that we have not yet discussed, but the government is working their way on some of these bottlenecks. So, and I think that we still have to look at the Indonesian market as with confidence. We hope that I invite the investors to look at the Indonesian market with confidence, because even with maybe the policy direction is still not that clear, but the renewable is still there, with still good and has quite a huge proportion. If you look at the long-term target of the CAN, the National Energy Policy, they expect 70% of renewable energy mix by 2060, right?
60.
Even though the target is lowered in the near
Future, yeah.
in the near future, but the long-term target is still expected
High.
to be quite high. So, and now the government is also slowly solving some of the bottlenecks. So I'll say that it's just after the new administration comes in, then the renewables could probably take off. Even with the, maybe the policy is still not really that, set with clear direction. So,
Yeah.
because why? Because the cost is just that competitive. So it's not there's no excuse for cost, even if the regulation might not be still well, it still face some challenge in regulation. It introduced some costs, but in the end, the final cost will determine which technology it's more profitable to put your money or your investment into, right? And we'll still see that still renewables, and then maybe in especially solar, maybe also storage technology is the key. And if it's not taking off within the next 5 years, then we could expect it after 2030 and so on, because
after.
it's just the cost is just going to be really decreasing again, and really be competitive.
Okay, thank you very much, Pak Deon, for your insights. We hope that you, dear viewers and listeners, have been able to learn some new information from this short discussion. If you'd like to see more of what we do, please visit our website. Don't hesitate to contact us if you'd like to know how you can be a part of this effort, or to suggest any topics you'd like to us to cover in our future podcasts. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. I've been your host, Andra Wisnu. Just